General Zexathera stood on the observation deck of her flagship, the Dominion's Wrath, watching the small blue planet rotate slowly beneath them. Her forearms crossed in contempt as she studied the tactical displays showing Earth's pathetic defenses. The human homeworld looked so fragile, so insignificant compared to the mighty Kethmoran Empire that had conquered 17 star systems in the past decade. These humans are even weaker than the intelligence report suggested, she sneered. To her tactical officer, Commander Veltok, her scaled hide shimmered with amusement as she gestured toward the holographic display. Look at their primitive weapons. Chemical propellants and nuclear warheads. They still use combustion engines for their spacecraft. The bridge crew of alien warriors erupted in chittering laughter. They had seen countless worlds fall before their advanced plasma weaponry and energy shields. The Kethmoran military machine was unstoppable, equipped with technology that could vaporize entire cities in seconds. Their ships moved faster than light itself, and their armor could withstand the fury of supernovas. Commander Veltok studied the human fleet formations through his multifaceted eyes. General, their largest vessels are barely 300 meters long. Our destroyers are twice that size, and this flagship spans nearly 2 kilometers. They have no energy weapons, no plasma cannons, no gravitational disruptors. How did such a primitive species even achieve spaceflight? Zexathara's mandibles clicked with predatory satisfaction. Luck, Commander. Pure luck and the charity of more advanced civilizations who took pity on them. But luck runs out eventually. She activated the communications array, broadcasting on all human frequencies. Her translator would ensure they understood every word of their coming doom. Attention, inhabitants of the world you call Earth. I am General Zexathara of the Kethmoran Empire. Your species has been selected for subjugation. You will surrender immediately and prepare for integration into our workforce, or you will be destroyed. You have one of your rotational periods to decide. The response came quickly from Earth's United Defense Command. A young human female appeared on the screen, wearing what appeared to be some kind of military uniform. Her species looked even more fragile in person, with their soft skin and small stature. No natural armor, no venomous claws, no redundant organs for survival. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth's Defense Fleet. We reject your ultimatum. Humanity will never surrender to alien invaders. Zexathera's laughter boomed across the bridge. Admiral Chen, your bravery is admirable but foolish. We have studied your military capabilities extensively. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships move at a fraction of our speed. What could you possibly hope to accomplish against the might of the Kethmoran Empire? The human admiral's face remained calm, almost serene. You've studied our conventional weapons, General, but you haven't studied us. Humans have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Primitive mammalian metaphors will not save you, Zexathara replied dismissively. Your chemical rockets and metal projectiles are children's toys compared to our plasma artillery. We have conquered worlds with civilizations far more advanced than yours. The Zephyrian crystal cities fell in hours. The mechanical armies of Proxima Beta were scrap metal within days. Admiral Chen nodded thoughtfully. Those civilizations probably relied on energy weapons and advanced technology. They fought the kind of war you expected. But humans learned warfare in a different school, General. We learned it in trenches filled with mud and blood. We learned it in jungles where survival meant improvisation. We learned it when our enemies thought they had every advantage. The alien general's amusement began to fade slightly. There was something in the human's tone that suggested hidden depths. But what could these primitives possibly possess that her advanced sensors hadn't detected? Her fleet's scanning arrays had mapped every human installation, cataloged every weapon system, analyzed every defensive position. Your confidence is misplaced, Admiral. My tactical computers have calculated a 97% probability of complete human defeat within 6 hours of combat initiation. Your primitive projectile weapons cannot harm our adaptive shielding. Maybe not, Admiral Chen admitted. But you're making the same mistake that every tyrant in human history has made. You're assuming that because our weapons look primitive, they are primitive. You're assuming that because our ships are smaller, they're weaker. You're assuming that because we use kinetic energy instead of exotic matter, we don't understand physics. Zexathara's tactical displays showed the human fleet taking defensive positions around their homeworld. Their formations looked amateur, almost quaint compared to the sophisticated battle doctrines of the Kethmoran military. The humans were arranging their ships in simple geometric patterns like ancient warriors preparing for a cavalry charge. "This conversation grows tiresome," the general declared. "You have 23 hours remaining to reconsider. Use that time wisely, Admiral Chen. Study our fleet strength. Analyze our weapon systems. Perhaps then you will understand the futility of resistance." As the communication ended, Zexathara turned to her bridge crew with renewed confidence. "Prepare the assault formations. Tomorrow we will demonstrate why the Kethmoran Empire is feared across the galaxy. These humans will learn that their primitive kinetic weapons are no match for true military science." But deep in the asteroid belt beyond Mars, something was stirring. Hidden construction facilities that had operated in secret for decades were powering up systems that the Kethmoran sensors had never detected. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't visible on any tactical display because it challenged every assumption about how warfare should be conducted. The aliens had studied human conventional weapons and found them wanting. They had analyzed human ship designs and dismissed them as inferior. But they had failed to understand the one thing that made humanity truly dangerous: their ability to think outside the established rules of engagement. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UDS Defiance, watching the alien fleet position itself for what they assumed would be an easy victory. She touched a small device on her collar, activating a secure communication channel that reached into the deepest black sites of human military development. "Phoenix Command, this is Admiral Chen. The aliens have taken the bait. They believe our conventional fleet is all we have. Initiate final preparations for Project Thunderbolt. It's time to show them what human ingenuity really looks like." 20 hours after the ultimatum, General Zexathara reviewed the final battle preparations with satisfaction. Her fleet of 300 warships hung in perfect formation above Earth, their energy shields crackling with contained power. Each vessel bristled with plasma cannons capable of melting through solid titanium, and their point defense systems could vaporize incoming projectiles before they came within 1,000 kilometers. "Status report, Commander Veltok," she commanded, her primary arms clasped behind her while her secondary limbs operated the tactical interface. "All ships report combat readiness, General. Our adaptive shielding is calibrated to deflect kinetic projectiles up to relativistic velocities. Plasma batteries are charged to maximum capacity. The humans cannot possibly surprise us with their primitive technology." Zexathara studied the human fleet disposition through her command displays. The Earth Defense Force had assembled roughly 200 vessels of various sizes, from small escort frigates to their largest dreadnought-class ships. Their formations looked desperate, clustering around strategic orbital positions like cornered animals preparing for a final stand. "Their deployment is tactically sound for their technology level," she admitted grudgingly. "But sound tactics cannot overcome insurmountable technological disadvantage. Begin the assault. Target their largest vessels first. Let them watch their champions fall before we sweep aside the smaller craft." The Kethmoran fleet moved forward with predatory grace. Their ships accelerated smoothly through space, energy weapons charging with lethal intent. This would be another glorious victory for the Empire, another primitive world added to their growing domain. But Admiral Chen stood calmly on her bridge, watching the alien advance with eyes that held no fear. Around her, the crew of the UDS Defiance worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise and purposeful. No panic, no desperation, just professional military focus. "Admiral, the alien fleet is entering optimal engagement range," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. "They're moving exactly as our simulations predicted." "Excellent. Signal all conventional ships to begin the opening engagement. Fire at will but maintain defensive formations. We need to keep their attention focused on our visible assets." Chen activated her private communication channel again. "Phoenix Command, how are our special preparations?" The response came immediately from a voice that carried the weight of decades in military black projects. "Admiral, Thunderbolt Station is fully operational. The main capacitor banks are charged to maximum capacity. We have a clear firing solution on the alien flagship." "Awaiting your command," Chen nodded grimly. "Hold position until the aliens commit fully to their attack. We need them to believe they're winning." The space around Earth erupted into brilliant displays of destruction as the two fleets engaged. Human missiles and railgun rounds streaked toward the Kethmoran formation, only to splash harmlessly against their energy shields. The alien plasma weapons responded with devastating accuracy, carving through human ship hulls like cutting torches through paper. General Zexthara watched with growing satisfaction as the first human vessels began to explode. Their primitive armor offered no protection against concentrated plasma fire. This was proceeding exactly as her tactical computers had predicted. The humans were brave but doomed. General, the enemy is using coordinated missile salvos to attempt shield overload, Commander Veltok reported. However, our adaptive systems are easily compensating for their crude kinetic weapons. 3 human destroyers have been eliminated with minimal damage to our forces. Continue the advance. Prioritize their command vessels. Once we eliminate their leadership, the remaining ships will surrender or flee. Zexthara allowed herself a moment of contempt for human military doctrine. They fought with such primitive weapons, such limited understanding of energy manipulation. But as the battle raged, something strange began to happen. The human fleet wasn't breaking. Despite taking heavy casualties, they maintained their formations and continued fighting with stubborn determination. Their tactics were evolving rapidly, adapting to Kethmaran weapon patterns with impressive speed. More concerning was the unusual behavior of some human vessels. Several smaller ships had broken off from the main engagement and were moving toward seemingly empty regions of space near the asteroid belt. Their trajectories made no tactical sense unless they were fleeing, but their speed and heading suggested otherwise. Commander, what are those human ships doing? Zexthara pointed to the tactical display showing the anomalous movements. Veltok's compound eyes studied the data carefully. Unknown, General. They appear to be moving toward coordinates with no strategic value. Perhaps they are positioning for a flanking maneuver, though the distances involved would make such tactics ineffective. Admiral Chen watched the progress of the engagement with growing anticipation. The Kethmaran fleet was performing exactly as expected, pressing their technological advantage with overwhelming firepower. But they were also moving deeper into the kill zone, their formations tightening as they prepared for what they assumed would be the final phase of the battle. Phoenix Command, enemy fleet is at optimal position. All support vessels have reached their designated coordinates. Thunderbolt Station is clear to engage. Copy that, Admiral. Thunderbolt Station coming online. Charging sequence initiated. Admiral, you should know that we've never tested this system at full power. The theoretical projections are promising, but I understand the risks, Phoenix Command. Sometimes you have to trust the science and hope for the best. Humanity didn't become masters of kinetic energy by playing it safe. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden within what appeared to be a natural rock formation, massive mechanical systems were coming to life. Fusion reactors that had been built in absolute secrecy over the past 2 decades began channeling enormous amounts of energy into a weapon system that represented the pinnacle of human engineering. The Thunderbolt Station wasn't visible to Kethmaran sensors because it had been designed specifically to avoid detection. Its outer shell was composed of actual asteroid material, carefully hollowed out and reinforced. Its energy signature was masked by the natural radiation of the asteroid belt, and its weapon system operated on principles that the aliens had dismissed as primitive. While the Kethmaran Empire had focused on exotic energy weapons and plasma technology, human engineers had taken a different path. They had pushed kinetic energy to its absolute limits, creating a magnetic acceleration system that could propel projectiles at velocities approaching a significant percentage of light speed. Admiral, we have target lock on the alien flagship, came the voice from Phoenix Command. Projectile loaded and acceleration coils are at maximum charge. The targeting computer has calculated trajectory for the enemy's current position and projected movement. Admiral Chen took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine humanity's fate. Either their secret weapon would prove that human ingenuity could overcome superior technology, or the Earth would fall to alien conquest. Fire, she commanded quietly. In the asteroid belt, the Thunderbolt Station unleashed humanity's answer to alien superiority. A projectile no larger than a telephone pole began accelerating through a magnetic tunnel, several kilometers long. Within seconds, it was moving at 12% of light speed, carrying kinetic energy equivalent to a nuclear weapon, but concentrated into a dense tungsten penetrator. The aliens had 37 seconds to live. General Zexthara felt the first stirrings of unease as she studied the battlefield display. The human fleet was fighting with unexpected tenacity, and their tactical adaptations were occurring faster than her strategic computers had predicted. But what truly bothered her was the growing energy signature her sensors were detecting from the asteroid belt. "Commander Veltok, what is that reading?" She pointed to a section of her display showing unusual electromagnetic disturbances near Mars orbit. "Unknown, General. The signature appeared approximately 1 minute ago. It's consistent with large-scale power generation, but our scans show only asteroids in that region. Perhaps the humans have hidden installations we failed to detect." Zexthara's mandibles clicked with irritation.
Impossible.
"Our preliminary surveys were thorough. There are no human facilities capable of generating that level of energy output. Continue monitoring, but maintain focus on the primary engagement." The space battle continued to rage around Earth's orbital sphere. Human ships fought desperately against superior firepower, their conventional weapons creating spectacular displays of futility against Kethmoran energy shields. But Admiral Chen's fleet was buying precious time, every second bringing them closer to vindication or catastrophe. Aboard the UDS Defiance, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez monitored the incoming data from Phoenix Command. "Admiral, Thunderbolt Station reports successful projectile launch. Impact with enemy flagship in 31 seconds. Kinetic energy at launch measured 2.7 exajoules." Admiral Chen felt her heart racing despite her calm exterior. The entire plan hinged on theoretical calculations and untested technology. Human scientists had spent years developing the mathematical models, but this would be the first real-world test against an actual energy shield system. "Signal all ships to maintain current engagement parameters. I want the aliens completely focused on our conventional fleet when that projectile arrives. 25 seconds to impact." The tungsten penetrator streaked through space at 12% of light speed, invisible to conventional detection systems. Its velocity was so extreme that it compressed space-time around itself, creating a localized gravitational distortion that bent light and warped electromagnetic fields. General Zexthara was studying casualty reports when her sensor officer suddenly erupted in panicked chittering. "General, massive kinetic signature incoming. Velocity 12.3% light speed. Impact imminent." The alien commander's four eyes widened in shock. "That's impossible. No primitive kinetic weapon can achieve such velocities. Where did it come from?" "Unknown origin point, General. The projectile wasn't detected until it entered our proximity sensors. Time to impact, 15 seconds. Zexthara's mind raced through the possibilities. A projectile moving at that velocity would carry devastating kinetic energy, potentially enough to overwhelm even their advanced shielding. But humans couldn't possibly possess such technology. Their mathematical models showed them centuries away from practical relativistic weaponry. Emergency maneuvers. Full power to defensive shields. All point defense systems engage. 10 seconds to impact. The Dominion's wrath began a desperate evasive turn, its massive bulk straining against the laws of physics as emergency thrusters fired at maximum burn. The ship's point defense grid activated, sending streams of plasma fire toward the incoming projectile's projected path. But the tungsten penetrator was moving too fast for conventional interception. The plasma bolts passed harmlessly through space where the projectile had been nanoseconds earlier. Kethmoran targeting computers designed for engaging conventional spacecraft couldn't track something moving at 12% of light speed. 5 seconds to impact. The alien flagship's shields blazed to maximum intensity, energy fields crackling with contained power. The defensive barriers that had protected Kethmoran, vessels through dozens of campaigns charged to levels that made space itself glow with trapped energy. General Zexthara braced herself as alarms screamed across the bridge. Her tactical displays showed the incoming projectile as a small dot of devastating potential. For the first time in her military career, she felt genuine fear. This was not how the battle was supposed to unfold. 2 seconds to impact. The tungsten penetrator, accelerated to impossible speeds by human engineering ingenuity, approached the Dominion's wrath with the inevitability of a natural disaster. Its kinetic energy was concentrated into a point no larger than a human fist, but carrying the destructive potential of a small star. 1 second to impact. Time seemed to slow as the projectile struck the flagship's energy shields. For a brief moment, the barrier held, brilliant light flaring across the electromagnetic spectrum as exotic energy fields struggled to dissipate impossible amounts of kinetic force. Then physics asserted itself with absolute authority. The tungsten penetrator punched through the energy. Shields like they were made of paper. The impact released 2.7 exajoules of kinetic energy in a space smaller than a basketball, creating a localized explosion that temporarily outshone the local sun. The projectile didn't just penetrate the Dominion's wrath. It passed completely through the ship, creating a perfectly cylindrical hole from bow to stern. The alien flagship, a monument to Keth-Moran military supremacy, simply ceased to exist as a functional vessel. The kinetic impact created a chain reaction that detonated power cores, vaporized hull sections, and sent debris flying in all directions at velocities that turned fragments into secondary weapons. General Sexthara had one moment of absolute shock before the bridge section where she stood was consumed by the expanding fireball. Her last thought was a single word of disbelief. Impossible. The destruction of the Dominion's wrath sent shockwaves through the Keth-Moran fleet. Their flagship, the most heavily armored and shielded vessel in the task force, had been obliterated by a single projectile from a supposedly primitive human weapon system. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction as the alien command ship disappeared in a brilliant flash of light. Phoenix Command, confirm successful engagement of primary target. Confirmed, Admiral. The alien flagship has been completely destroyed. Thunderbolt Station is recharging for a second shot, but it will require approximately 8 minutes to reach full capacity again. Copy that. Signal all ships to press the attack. The aliens are in shock and their command structure is disrupted. This is our chance to show them that humanity doesn't go quietly into the night. Across the Keth-Moran fleet, confusion and panic began to spread. Ship commanders who had expected an easy victory against primitive opponents suddenly found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. If the enemy could produce weapons capable of destroying their most powerful vessel, what other surprises might they be hiding? Commander Veltok, now the senior officer of the invasion fleet, stared at the expanding debris field where the Dominion's wrath had been moments before. His compound eyes couldn't process what he had witnessed. The humans had somehow developed kinetic weapons that exceeded theoretical maximums for their technology level. All ships, maintain formation, he transmitted, though his voice carried the tremor of uncertainty. The flagship has been destroyed by unknown human weapons. Adjust shield harmonics to maximum kinetic resistance. Continue the assault. But doubt had been planted in alien minds. If humans could destroy their flagship with a single shot, perhaps this invasion wouldn't be the simple conquest they had anticipated. Commander Veltok tried to maintain his composure as he assumed command of the shocked Keth-Moran fleet. The bridge of his heavy cruiser, the Crimson Talon, buzzed with panicked communications from throughout the invasion force. Ship captains who had been confident of victory minutes earlier now demanded explanations for the impossible weapon that had annihilated their flagship. "Sir, the humans are pressing their attack," reported his tactical officer. "Their conventional fleet is advancing on multiple fronts. Their missile salvos have increased in intensity by 40%. Veltok studied the battlefield display with growing unease. The human ships were moving with renewed aggression, their formations tightening as they closed distance with his scattered vessels. More concerning were the energy readings from the asteroid belt, which indicated that whatever weapon had destroyed the Dominion's wrath was still active. "Status report on fleet casualties," he commanded, his voice betraying none of the uncertainty gnawing at his confidence. 17 vessels destroyed, 31 damaged. The humans appear to have concentrated their conventional weapons on ships already weakened by the unknown kinetic weapons proximity effects. They're demonstrating tactical coordination we didn't expect from a primitive species. Admiral Chen watched the alien response with professional satisfaction. The destruction of their flagship had created exactly the psychological impact she had hoped for. The Keth-Moran fleet was no longer operating as a unified force. Individual commanders were making independent decisions based on fear rather than doctrine. "Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, what's our status on conventional ammunition?" "We're down to 60% of standard loadout, Admiral. The aliens' energy shields are absorbing most of our kinetic rounds, but we're forcing them to maintain maximum defensive power. Their offensive capabilities are reduced by approximately 25%. "Excellent. Continue the pressure." "Phoenix Command, what's the status on Thunderbolt Station?" The response crackled through her secure channel. "Admiral, we're at 70% charge capacity. 6 minutes until we can fire again. However, we're detecting increased alien scanning activity directed toward our position. They may be attempting to locate our installation. Chen nodded grimly. Understood. Prepare for potential discovery. If they find you, defend the station at all costs. We need every shot we can get. In the asteroid belt, Thunderbolt Station was indeed being hunted. Kethmoran sensor arrays, initially fooled by the camouflaged installation, were now conducting intensive sweeps for the source of the devastating kinetic weapon. The station's crew of 50 engineers and technicians worked frantically to complete the charging sequence while maintaining their electromagnetic camouflage. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the lead scientist on the Thunderbolt project, monitored the incoming scans with growing concern. Major Harrison, they're using active sensor pulses now. Our stealth systems weren't designed to handle this level of scrutiny. Major Harrison, the station's military commander, studied the tactical display showing prowling alien ships moving systematically through the asteroid field. Doctor, how much longer until we can fire? 4 minutes, 30 seconds. But if they find us before then, we won't get another shot. Meanwhile, Commander Veltok was implementing a desperate strategy. Deploy scout formations to sectors 7 through 12. That kinetic weapon had to originate from somewhere within the asteroid belt. Find its source and destroy it before it can fire again. The Kethmoran search was methodical and determined. Their advanced sensors penetrated asteroid after asteroid, mapping internal structures and energy signatures. It was only a matter of time before they discovered the humans' hidden weapon, but Admiral Chen had anticipated this possibility. All reserve squadrons intercept alien search formations in the asteroid belt. Your priority is to protect Phoenix Command's position. Engage at maximum range and force them to focus on you instead of scanning. 20 human ships that had been held in reserve suddenly accelerated toward the asteroid belt, their engines burning at maximum output. These vessels carried the latest human technology: enhanced railguns, improved armor, and most importantly, specialized electronic warfare systems designed to disrupt alien sensors. The space around the asteroids erupted into chaotic combat as human ships engaged the Kethmoran search formations. Energy beams and kinetic rounds crossed the void while both sides maneuvered desperately among the rocky debris. Admiral, the reserve squadrons are taking heavy casualties, Rodriguez reported, but they're successfully disrupting the alien search patterns. Phoenix Command should have enough time to complete their charging sequence. Chen watched as human ships died to protect their secret weapon. Each explosion represented dozens of brave souls sacrificing themselves for Earth's survival. But war demanded such sacrifices, and the alternative was the enslavement of humanity. Commander Veltok found himself fighting on two fronts: the main battle around Earth and the secondary engagement in the asteroid belt. His forces were being stretched thin, and the humans were exploiting every tactical advantage with surprising skill. Sir, we've lost contact with Search Group Alpha. The humans appear to be using some form of sensor jamming. Our scanning efficiency has been reduced by 60%. Compensate with additional ships. I want every asteroid in that field examined. The weapon that destroyed our flagship must be found and eliminated. But time was running out for the Kethmoran commander. On Thunderbolt Station, Dr. Mitchell's countdown reached its final phase. 30 seconds to full charge. Targeting computers are locked onto the alien heavy cruiser designated as the current command vessel. Major Harrison opened communication. Channels to Admiral Chen. Phoenix Command to Admiral Chen. We have target lock on the alien commander's ship. Preparing to fire on your command. Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display showing the Crimson Talon positioned at the center of the alien formation. Destroying their second command ship would likely break their morale completely, but it would also reveal the location of Thunderbolt Station to any remaining Kethmoran forces. All ships prepare for general assault. When Phoenix Command fires, I want every available weapon trained on the alien fleet. This is our chance to break them completely. She opened the channel to Thunderbolt Station. Phoenix Command, you are authorized to engage. Send these invaders a message about human resolve. Dr. Mitchell's finger hovered over the firing control. Thunderbolt Station, firing in 3, 2, 1. Firing now. For the second time in minutes, a tungsten penetrator accelerated to 12% of light speed, streaking across the solar system with enough kinetic energy to split mountains. Commander Veltok had 35 seconds to realize that his mockery of human weakness had been premature. The aliens were about to learn that sometimes the most Devastating weapons are the ones your enemy thinks are primitive. Humanity's mastery of kinetic energy was about to be demonstrated with lethal clarity once again. Commander Veltok was in the middle of coordinating search patterns when his sensor officer's panicked screech filled the bridge. "Sir, another kinetic projectile incoming. Same velocity as before. Impact in 30 seconds. The Kethmoran commander felt his blood freeze in his veins. The humans had fired their impossible weapon again, and this time his ship was the target. All around him, bridge officers worked frantically at their stations, trying to implement evasive maneuvers that might save them from the fate that had befallen the Dominion's wrath. Emergency thrusters. All power to shields. Point defense systems fire everything along the projectile's trajectory. Veltok's voice cracked with desperation as he issued orders that he knew were probably futile. The Crimson Talon began its evasive turn, but the ship was massive, and momentum was unforgiving. The tungsten penetrator was approaching at 40,000 kilometers per second, making conventional evasion nearly impossible at close range, 20 seconds to impact. Throughout the Kethmoran fleet, ship commanders watched in horror as their second command vessel faced annihilation. The psychological impact was devastating. If humans could destroy their most powerful ships at will, how could they possibly complete their invasion? Admiral Chen observed the aliens' panic with grim satisfaction. "All ships, general assault." Hit them while they're confused and demoralized. Phoenix Command, prepare to relocate after this shot. They'll find your position eventually. 15 seconds to impact. The Crimson Talon's shields blazed with maximum intensity, creating a protective barrier that had never failed against conventional weapons. But the approaching projectile wasn't conventional by any measure. It carried kinetic energy equivalent to a tactical nuclear weapon, concentrated into a space smaller than a human fist. 10 seconds to impact. Commander Veltok's tactical displays showed the incoming projectile as an unstoppable force of destruction. His ship's point defense systems fired desperately, sending streams of plasma energy toward the approaching tungsten penetrator. But hitting something moving at 12% of light speed was like trying to catch a photon with bare hands. 5 seconds to impact. Time seemed to slow as the projectile approached the Crimson Talon's shields. Veltok found himself thinking about the intelligence reports that had described humans as primitive and weak. Those reports had been catastrophically wrong. 2 seconds to impact. The tungsten penetrator struck the energy shields with the force of a small asteroid. For a brief moment, the barriers held, energy fields straining against impossible kinetic force. Then physics reasserted itself with brutal finality. The projectile punched through the shields and penetrated the Crimson Talon's armored hull, as if it were made of tissue paper. The kinetic impact created a corridor of destruction that extended from the ship's bow to its stern, vaporizing everything in its path and triggering cascading explosions throughout the vessel. Commander, Veltok had one moment to comprehend the magnitude of human ingenuity before his bridge was consumed by superheated plasma. The Crimson Talon joined the Dominion's wrath as expanding debris, its destruction sending shockwaves through the remaining alien fleet. Captain Zarthek of the destroyer Knight's Edge found himself the senior surviving officer of the invasion force. His ship was smaller and more maneuverable than the heavy cruisers that had been destroyed, but he had no illusions about his chances against weapons that could obliterate capital ships with single shots. "All ships, emergency dispersal pattern Delta 7, he transmitted across the fleet communication network. "Maximum evasive maneuvers. The humans possess kinetic weapons of unprecedented capability. Our original tactical assessments were incorrect, but the damage to Kethmoran morale was already catastrophic. Ship captains who had expected an easy conquest now faced an enemy that could destroy their most powerful vessels at will. Several ships began moving away from Earth, their commanders unwilling to face weapons they didn't understand. On Thunderbolt Station, Dr. Mitchell and her team watched their second successful engagement with professional pride tempered by urgency. Major Harrison were detecting multiple alien ships moving toward our position. They're triangulating our location based on the projectile trajectories. Major Harrison studied the tactical display, showing Kethmoran vessels converging on their section of the asteroid belt. "Doctor, how long until we can fire again?" "Minimum 8 minutes for a full charge. We could fire at reduced power in 6 minutes, but the kinetic energy would be significantly lower. Prepare for evacuation protocols. If they find us, we'll have to abandon the station and detonate the self-destruct charges." Admiral Chen received the update from Phoenix Command with mixed emotions. The secret weapon had exceeded all expectations, destroying 2 major alien vessels and breaking their fleet cohesion. But its location was compromised and the station would likely be discovered within minutes. Phoenix Command, prepare for immediate evacuation. Set self-destruct for maximum delay. We need to extract your personnel and deny the aliens access to our technology. Understood, Admiral. Beginning evacuation procedures now. The station's reactor can be overloaded to prevent capture of sensitive materials. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez looked up from his display with urgency. Admiral, the alien fleet is fragmenting. 15 ships have broken formation and appear to be withdrawing from Earth orbit, but the remaining vessels are consolidating around their destroyer formations. Chen nodded thoughtfully. They're regrouping under new leadership. The question is whether they'll continue the assault or retreat to report our capabilities to their superiors. Captain Zarthek was facing exactly that dilemma. His reduced fleet still possessed significant firepower, but the humans had demonstrated weapons technology that invalidated all previous tactical assumptions. Continuing the attack might result in the complete destruction of the invasion force. Communications Officer, establish contact with Kethmoran High Command. Priority Alpha transmission. The human species possesses advanced kinetic weapons that exceed our current defensive capabilities. Request immediate strategic guidance. The response would take hours to travel across interstellar distances, leaving Zarthek with an impossible decision. Should he retreat with the surviving ships and report humanity's unexpected strength? Or should he press the attack despite the devastating losses? Meanwhile, human search and rescue teams were racing toward Thunderbolt Station to evacuate its personnel before the aliens could capture them. The secret weapon had served its purpose, demonstrating that human ingenuity could overcome technological disadvantage. But the real test was yet to come. The Kethmoran Empire would not ignore the loss of 2 capital ships to a supposedly primitive species. Word of humanity's kinetic weapons would spread throughout alien space, forcing other civilizations to reassess their assumptions about Earth's military capabilities. Dr. Mitchell sealed the last of the critical research data as evacuation shuttles approached the station. Major, all personnel are ready for extraction. The reactor overload is programmed for a 30-minute delay. Copy that, Doctor. Our work here is done. The aliens wanted to see human weapons technology, and we've given them a demonstration they'll never forget. As the evacuation proceeded, Admiral Chen prepared for the next phase of the battle. The aliens might retreat, but they would return with better preparation and more ships. Humanity had won the first round, but the war for Earth's independence was just beginning. Captain Zarthek faced the most difficult decision of his military career as he watched human rescue ships evacuate personnel from what his sensors had finally identified as the source of the devastating kinetic weapons. His fleet had been reduced from 300 ships to fewer than 200, with many of the survivors showing battle damage from human conventional weapons. "Sir, we've located the human weapon platform," reported his tactical officer. "It's concealed within asteroid designation KM7749, however, they appear to be evacuating the facility and have likely set self-destruct charges." Zarthek studied the tactical display with grudging respect for human cunning. "So they built their most powerful weapon inside an asteroid, invisible to our preliminary scans. How long have they been planning this defense?" "Unknown, sir. But the construction would have required years, possibly decades. The humans may have been preparing for this confrontation since their first contact with galactic civilization." The implications were staggering. The Kethmoran Empire had assumed that humanity's brief exposure to advanced technology meant they remained primitively minded. Instead, the humans had used their time to develop weapons that turned their supposed technological disadvantage into a devastating surprise. Admiral Chen monitored the alien response from her command bridge, noting their hesitation with approval. "Rodriguez, what's the status on Phoenix Command evacuation?" "All personnel extracted successfully, Admiral. Dr. Mitchell's team is aboard the rescue shuttles and en route to safe harbor. The station's reactor overload will detonate in 12 minutes. "Excellent. Signal all conventional units to maintain pressure on the alien fleet. I want them too busy defending themselves to mount an effective assault on the evacuating shuttles." The space around Earth continued to flash with weapons fire as human ships pressed their attack against the confused Kethmoran forces. Without their command ships to coordinate tactics, The alien fleet was fighting as individual units rather than a unified force. This fragmentation allowed smaller human vessels to exploit gaps in their formations. Captain Zarthek received damage reports that confirmed his worst fears. "Sir, we've lost 37 additional ships to concentrated human attacks. Their conventional weapons are more effective than anticipated when employed with proper tactical coordination." "How is that possible?" "Our intelligence indicated that human kinetic weapons couldn't penetrate our shields. The humans are using coordinated salvos to overload shield generators, sir. Once the barriers fail, their projectile weapons are quite effective against our hull materials. They've also demonstrated electronic warfare capabilities that disrupt our targeting systems." Zarthek realized that the Kethmoran intelligence assessment had been flawed in multiple ways. The humans weren't just hiding advanced kinetic weapons. They had also developed sophisticated tactics that maximize the effectiveness of their entire arsenal. All ships begin strategic withdrawal to minimum safe distance, maintain defensive formations, and prepare for long-range bombardment. He paused, hating to give the order but recognizing tactical reality. "We cannot achieve victory with current force levels." Admiral Chen watched the alien fleet begin its retreat with satisfaction. "They're pulling back. Phoenix Command's demonstration has convinced them that a direct assault is too costly." "Admiral, should we pursue?" asked Rodriguez. "Negative. Our conventional weapons are effective at close range, but they can outrun us if we commit to a pursuit. Let them withdraw and report our capabilities to their superiors. Sometimes the best victory is the one that prevents future battles." But Chen knew this was only a temporary respite. The Kethmoran Empire wouldn't abandon their conquest plans because of one setback. They would return with better preparation, more ships, and countermeasures for human kinetic weapons. As if summoned by her thoughts, the communication console chimed with an incoming transmission from the withdrawing alien fleet. Captain Zarthek's image appeared on her screen, his reptilian features showing a mixture of respect and wariness. "Admiral Chen, I am Captain Zarthek, current commander of the Kethmoran invasion force. I request temporary ceasefire to discuss terms." Chen considered the request carefully. "Very well, Captain. You have my attention. Your species has demonstrated military capabilities that were not anticipated by our intelligence services. The Empire will reassess its approach to Earth based on today's engagement. However, you should understand that this is not the end of Kethmoran interest in your world." "I understand perfectly, Captain. Your Empire made the mistake of assuming that because our technology looks different, it must be inferior. That was poor judgment on your part." Zarthek's mandibles clicked in what might have been acknowledgement. "Indeed, we underestimated both your weapons technology and your tactical abilities. But the Empire has vast resources, Admiral Chen. We can return with larger fleets and specific countermeasures for your kinetic weapons. You're welcome to try, Captain. But consider this. If humans could develop weapons that defeated your best ships in secret, what other surprises might we have prepared? Your intelligence services failed you once. Are you confident they won't fail you again?" The alien captain was silent for several moments, processing the implications. Admiral Chen had just suggested that humanity possessed additional secret weapons beyond the devastating kinetic artillery that had destroyed 2 capital ships. Whether this was true or not, the psychological impact was significant. "This engagement is concluded," Zarthek finally declared. "But the Empire will return, Admiral. Your species will eventually face conquest or extermination. Captain, let me give you some advice about humanity. We've been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. We've faced enemies with superior technology, superior numbers, and superior resources. Sometimes we lose battles, but we have a remarkable tendency to win wars. Tell your Empire that Earth will never surrender." The communication ended, leaving Admiral Chen alone with her thoughts as the alien fleet continued its withdrawal toward the edge of the solar system. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly to assess damage and casualties from the engagement. In the asteroid belt, Thunderbolt Station's reactor reached critical overload. The explosion was visible as a brief new star, vaporizing the asteroid that had concealed humanity's secret weapon and ensuring that no trace of the technology would fall into alien hands. Dr. Mitchell watched the destruction of her life's work from the rescue shuttle's observation port. "Major Harrison, do you think this will deter them permanently?" "No, Doctor, but it will make them think twice about underestimating us. And thinking enemies make mistakes. When they return, we'll be ready with new surprises." Admiral Chen opened communication channels to Earth's surface where billions of humans had watched the battle through news feeds and military broadcasts. "This is Admiral Chen to Earth Command. The immediate threat has been repelled. The alien invasion force is withdrawing from our system." The response came immediately from General Morrison, Earth's senior military commander. "Outstanding work, Admiral. What are your recommendations for future defense preparations?" "General, we've bought ourselves time, but not victory. The aliens will return with better preparation and larger fleets. We need to accelerate all black projects and begin construction of additional kinetic weapon platforms." This was just the opening engagement. As the human fleet began recovery operations, word of the battle spread throughout the galaxy via alien communication networks. Other civilizations that had dismissed humanity as primitive began reassessing their assumptions. The species that had seemed helpless had just defeated one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. Earth's reputation as a backward world was about to change dramatically. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the ripple effects of humanity's unexpected victory continued to spread throughout galactic civilization. In the halls of the Kethmaran Imperial Command, High Admiral Vex Nara studied the detailed battle reports with growing concern. The loss of 2 capital ships to a supposedly primitive species had shaken the Empire's confidence and forced a complete reassessment of human capabilities. "The analysis is clear, High Admiral," reported Intelligence Director Kolveth, his scaled hide pale with anxiety. "The humans possess kinetic weapons technology that exceeds our defensive capabilities. Worse, they demonstrated tactical coordination that suggests advanced military doctrine." Vexnara's forearms gestured dismissively. "2 lucky shots do not make them a galactic power, Director. But their weapon system does present complications for our expansion plans. High Admiral, there's more. Our intelligence networks report that other civilizations are beginning to view humanity differently. The Zephyrian Council has initiated formal diplomatic contact with Earth. The Proximan Trade Federation is offering technology exchanges. Even the crystalline hegemony has expressed interest in establishing relations." The implications were staggering. For decades, humanity had been ignored by galactic civilization as too primitive to matter. Now, their demonstration of unexpected military capability was attracting attention from major powers throughout the galaxy. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the renovated Phoenix Command facility, watching construction of 12 new kinetic weapon platforms throughout the solar system. The success of Thunderbolt Station had convinced Earth's governments to invest heavily in defensive systems that could protect humanity from future alien aggression. "Admiral, we've received another diplomatic contact request," reported her aide, Captain Martinez, this time from the Andromedian League. "They're offering defensive alliance negotiations." Chen reviewed the incoming messages with satisfaction. 6 months ago, we couldn't get any alien civilization to return our communications. Now they're lining up to talk with us. Fear is an excellent diplomatic tool. Dr. Mitchell, promoted to Director of Advanced Weapons Development, entered the command center with her latest progress report. "Admiral, I have updates on Project Thunderbolt 2. We've improved the magnetic acceleration system by 30%. The next generation platforms will be capable of firing projectiles at 15% of light speed." "Excellent work, Doctor. How many platforms will be operational by year's end?" 18, Admiral. Plus, we're developing mobile versions that can be deployed on our largest warships. The aliens won't catch us defenseless again. But the most significant changes were occurring in humanity's relationship with the broader galaxy. Earth's unexpected military success had forced other civilizations to acknowledge humans as a legitimate power, rather than an insignificant backwater species. Ambassador Sarah Rodriguez, Earth's first representative to the Galactic Council, found herself in the unprecedented position of being actively courted by alien diplomats who had previously ignored human requests for recognition. Ambassador Rodriguez approached Delegate Zilfara of the Hegemony. "My government would like to discuss mutual defense, cooperation with Earth. Your kinetic weapons technology could provide valuable deterrent capabilities against aggressive expansionist powers." The irony wasn't lost on Rodriguez. 6 months ago, Delegate, your government's official position was that humanity lacked the sophistication for galactic politics. What changed your assessment? Recent events have demonstrated that Earth possesses military capabilities that were not properly appreciated, Zilfara admitted carefully. The hegemony believes that productive cooperation would benefit both our civilizations. Meanwhile, Captain Zarthek found himself before a Kethmoran military tribunal, defending his decision to withdraw from Earth rather than continue the assault. The loss of face for the Empire was significant, and someone had to be held accountable. Captain Zarthek declared the tribunal president, "You retreated from a primitive world after losing only 2 ships. Your actions brought dishonor to the Empire. Honored tribunal, those were not ordinary ships destroyed by ordinary weapons. The humans demonstrated kinetic artillery, capable of obliterating our most powerful vessels with single shots. Continuing the assault would have resulted in complete fleet destruction with no tactical gain." The tribunal members exchanged glances that suggested they still struggled to accept the reality of human military capability. "Captain, your official report claims that a species using primitive kinetic weapons defeated advanced Kethmoran technology. This seems improbable." Zarthek activated the holographic display showing the destruction of the Dominion's wrath. "Honored Tribunal, this is the factual record of the engagement. The human projectile achieved 12% of light speed and carried sufficient kinetic energy to penetrate our strongest shields. They turned physics into a weapon more devastating than our most advanced plasma artillery." The silence that followed was profound. The tribunal members had seen the evidence, but accepting it meant acknowledging that their technological superiority wasn't absolute. Other civilizations in the galaxy might possess weapons that could threaten Kethmoran dominance. Back on Earth, Admiral Chen received an unexpected communication from the Kethmoran Empire. High Admiral Vexnara appeared on her screen, his expression carefully neutral. "Admiral Chen, I am High Admiral Vexnara of the Kethmoran Imperial Fleet. I wish to discuss the current situation between our civilizations." "High Admiral. I assume you're calling to arrange the terms of your next invasion attempt?" "Actually, Admiral, I'm calling to propose a different approach. The Empire recognizes that humanity possesses military capabilities that were not properly assessed during our initial contact. We would like to establish formal diplomatic relations and discuss potential cooperation agreements." Chen couldn't hide her amazement. The Empire that had threatened to enslave humanity was now requesting diplomatic relations. "High Admiral, that's quite a change from your previous position of demanding our immediate surrender. Recent events have provided new information that affects our strategic calculations, Admiral. The Empire is prepared to recognize Earth as a sovereign power and negotiate mutually beneficial agreements. I'll consider your proposal, High Admiral, but understand that any diplomatic relationship will be based on absolute equality. The days of aliens treating humanity as inferior are over. The transformation of humanity's galactic status was remarkable. In 6 months, Earth had gone from being dismissed as a primitive backwater to being courted by major powers throughout the galaxy. The secret was simple. Respect in galactic politics came from the ability to project force, and humanity had demonstrated that capability in the most decisive way possible. Dr. Mitchell stood in her new laboratory, surrounded by prototypes of weapons that would ensure humanity never again faced extinction at alien hands. "You know, Admiral, General Zexithera was right about one thing. Human weapons did look primitive compared to alien technology. She just made the mistake of thinking that primitive appearance meant primitive capability." Admiral Chen nodded as she watched construction crews installing the latest kinetic weapon platforms throughout the solar system. The general learned too late that sometimes the most dangerous weapons are the ones your enemy underestimates. Humanity spent thousands of years perfecting the art of throwing rocks at our enemies. We just figured out how to throw them really, really fast. The aliens had mocked humanity's reliance on kinetic energy and primitive projectile weapons. Now they feared those same weapons more than any plasma cannon or energy beam in the galaxy. The lesson was clear. Never underestimate a species that has turned physics into poetry and velocity into vengeance. Earth's defense was secure, its independence assured, and its future bright among the stars. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity not despite their primitive weapons, but because of them. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best solutions, especially when applied with human ingenuity and determination. The Kethmoran Empire had sought to conquer a weak species and instead discovered a civilization that could turn simple physics into devastating military art. They had mocked humanity's weakness and learned to fear their strength. The Railgun's kinetic fury had spoken louder than any diplomatic protest, and the galaxy had listened with newfound respect.